Greetings all, Frog here. Let's talk Factorio. So, version 0.12 is out. It's here. So we're going to talk a little bit about what's different before we actually get into the game. So this is a bonus video. You'll notice this came out a little bit early. I think I'm planning to release this at 11:30 on Saturday. I'm recording this at 8:45 in the morning on Saturday. I was going to do this last night, but excuse me, my wife is involved in a wedding, and so we were at the rehearsal dinner last night, and by the time I got home, I was just a little too tired. So we're going to talk about it now. There's some kind of, and then there's kind of, updates in this, so we're just going to go through it. These are the release notes for version 0.12, posted by the Factorio bot yesterday morning at 9:51 a.m. Eastern Time. Excuse me. White cranberry is strawberry today, if you're curious. So, instead of rocket defense, we now have the endgame by the rocket silo launching the satellite, which is going to be the new endgame, is this whole space development thing. I don't know if I like this. I like the idea that Factorio was an RTS, sort of. It was a base builder. We'll call it a base builder. That's a base builder on a planet. It's RTS. And that was it. And I think they're going to try and do something a little bit more than that, and I don't know. It's like, oh heck, what was that game that just released yesterday? I commented about it on Twitter. The tagline was something like, Executive Assault, that's what it was called. Have you ever played your favorite RTS and wished you could be down there directing the troops? No. I play an RTS to play an RTS. I don't play an RTS to also play a first-person shooter at the same time. And it's kind of the same thing here. I'm not sure I really want to have that extra layer, but we'll see. I mean, it all depends on how they do it. It could be amazing. I might be poo-pooing something that, in the end, doesn't really matter. Let's dive into it. Added chain signals to make more complicated junctions and stations without deadlocks. That's kind of cool. Chain signals are neat. They basically produce some sort of like if-then logic into your train blocks. I don't know if I'm going to use them a lot because, frankly, the types of rail networks that I create are pretty robust, and I only need the on-off chain, or the on-off signal, really, but we'll see. Personal Roboport, this is pretty cool. So you'll be able to have, it'll be a piece in your armor. I don't know the size of it yet. I haven't played this. This is all before I've launched the game to see what's going on. But it goes into your mod armor, and what's cool is that it'll use the robots and any materials that you have in your inventory to do things. So you can like set up chains to start building whatever and not have to wait for the main network to get it done. It also allows you to build things where there is no main network. So you're going to go out to an outpost, create an outpost 3, for instance, and you don't want to bring a roboport necessarily because it's not going to need it when it's done. So rather than waste the resources to build a big roboport, you just do your own personal roboport, and there you go. And you can just like set down the blueprints, and the robots will take care of it as long as you have everything on, which is cool. There's a logistics trash field, which when I first read it, I was a little nervous about the trash part, but no, it's just it gets it out of your inventory. So if you put those things in your inventory, it basically not in your inventory, excuse me. If you put it in the logistics trash field, you then basically act like a active provider chest, and it'll put it back into storage, which is really cool. Added combinators, which I'm very excited about. There's arithmetic decider and constant combinators, and I'm not sure how I'm going to use these yet, but it's definitely interesting because it expands the circuit network like you wouldn't believe. More expansion includes now the lamp, storage tank, small pump, and offshore pump can be connected to the network. So if you have, if you have fewer than 100 blue belts in your logistics network, for instance, run the pump to keep the lubricant flowing or something. If your storage tank or don't run your factory if the storage tank of I'm thinking all of Bosmod's liquids, which doesn't help. What makes batteries? This is embarrassing. I can't remember. Sulfuric acid. If sulfuric acid is over half, don't bother running the machine because maybe you don't want to store 2,500. You're happy storing 1,250. So you can do stuff like that. They've improved multiplayer, which isn't really anything for me because I don't play multiplayer yet, although I'm open to it. And apparently it's pretty slick that anything that's common, it's it gives the impression that it's immediate because there's some latency hiding. It's buffering essentially. Ooh, I can get that out. Here's my mouse. Hi, that's not annoying at all, is it? Is this annoying? Is this annoying? Is it? Okay. So you can build paths now. There's two different types of paths. There's stone paths and concrete floors, which increase the walking speed. I didn't bother to look before I did this of how fast the modular armor legs increase your walking speed, but this is additive, so it will be more on top of that. Excuse me, I'm not used to recording early in the morning. I feel like I'm just drying out at the second I start talking. Terrain modifies vehicle friction force, which is kind of cool. So the car will not run as optimized in the sand as it will on concrete, for instance. And it will, I can't remember if it's later on in here, if it was just reading some updates about it, but the tank won't be as affected as the car because the tank is heavier, and so it has a higher friction force by itself. So all of those things kind of come together, which is really neat. The trees will die if there's high pollution. This is amazing. Lab research is now continuous. Science packs have progress bars of usage. So it means that 20 labs doing research with 10 units will still be faster than 10 labs, and the science packs aren't wasted, for instance. So what used to happen is if you had 20 science labs working on something, and it was it cost 90 red science, for instance, to make, it would load all the 20 machines. You'd get 20. You'd load the 20 machines, you'd go up to 40. You'd load the 20, 60, and then 80, and it would load all 20 machines. Use 10 of them, and you lost the other 10. So that's why it was very popular not to make any more than 10 science labs, because you're going to lose extras. And even with 10, you're losing some, because some of the recipes are 75. But that was considered to be an acceptable loss, because it optimizes pretty much everything else. By the time you get to mid-game, they all are multiples of 100. Well, now they're going to operate like fuel inside of a thing, so it will tick down. So when you're done with a science, whatever's left in that science pack will go toward the next science. Great change. Really great change. This next one's kind of cool too. The assembling machine input slot can contain more than a normal stack size. So if a recipe requires 25 of something or 40 of something, you could, and then stack size is 50, you can only hold 50. So you'd have to wait for it to load back up to go on. Now, there aren't recipes that big. But what's going to happen now is that they'll be able to hold 3 times the recipe, which is really cool. So apparently, if the rocket silo requires 1,000 steel, which is going to happen now, that's quite a lot of steel. But the input stack can actually hold 1,000 steel now instead of just 100, which is nice. Because that's just a simple fix. Mods have been doing that for ages. So it's pretty easy for them to add, obviously, and I'm excited about that. They've added or updated sounds for the biters, spitters, worms, spawners, flamethrower, tank, laser, etc. I don't think the flamethrower had a sound originally, so I'm kind of excited about that. There's a new ambient soundtrack. This is one of the things that Aruma's been, I don't think he realized, is that in the soundtrack there are 2 music tracks and 1 wind track. And they just alternate. Well, they don't alternate, but it's random, basically, or maybe it's cycles. I'm not entirely certain, but there's always that wind soundtrack. So it sounds like your soundtrack just cuts out. No, it's the wind sounds. So they've added more ambient soundtracks and tries to rotate it more, I guess. What bothers me is this whole alternate between neutral wind environment sounds and soundtrack songs, because I just want the soundtrack, and I wish there was a way that I could do that. I plan to plug around inside of the... Actually, well, I can do that right now, right? We'll take a second here. You won't even notice. Let's see. We'll go into Factorio. What, data, you'd think? Yep, sound. Those are all the different sounds. But these aren't the ambient sounds. These are actual sounds that things make during the game. There's actually 3, 6, 9, 11 different sounds of you walking. Creatures have their own sounds. So it's not under sounds. What would it be under? It would be very disappointing if they were hard-coded in. I would love to be able to change something like that. Is it under core? Core sounds. Ambient. Yep, there it is. So, I guess I can affect that, because I can just move songs in and out of that folder, so that's good to know. If you're wanting to do that on your own, it's under Factorio Data Core sound, and then there's an ambient folder. Wow, that's some modding possibility there. I'm excited about that. Cool. You might get this in the background of this video now. I'm not listening to it right now because I had not seen where it was before I started recording. But now, I mean, I could add it. Why not? Alright, so good. I can get rid of the wind sound because I like it. It's cool, but I kind of want the choice. So maybe I'll like have a sim link. I could just point the link to either the wind sounds or the other sounds, depending on my mood. Seems reasonable. Alright, there's my mouse in the way again. Mousing over a train shows you its current path and blocks it can't enter. That's kind of cool. Locomotives now show the contents of the attached cargo wagons, so that's kind of cool as well. Trees will regenerate health slowly. This, I think, goes with the pollution factor as well, so they slowly die because of the pollution. Now they can slowly regain. They've added support for transferring contents and settings when fast replacing all entity types, which is excellent. They added modules to the alt view for entities that support modules, which is so. I like it because then you can see what module's in there, but at the same time I like the bigger view, so we'll just have to see how it's implemented. Factorio can run as a dedicated server without graphics. This intrigues me, so I haven't actually read about this yet. Multiplayer headless server. Let's see. Excuse me. A dedicated server can be started using the Start Server command line option. In this mode, graphics is not initialized. Game starts immediately. Load a save given as a parameter. Server has no character in game. Game is paused when there are no players connected, and then saves the game on exit. So, I don't know. Could be interesting. You could just have a persistent world and run a server, which is tempting. I mean, I have servers, so that's tempting. We'll consider that in the future. Maybe a subscriber server or something. I don't know. Basic player versus player. So you can have forces come together, go apart. There's a ceasefire, blah, 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 blah. IPv6, which is more important as we go in the future, but kind of meaningless right now. Most people are still on IPv4, but IPv6 is good. DNS names connecting to multiplayer games now, which is excellent. So if you have a round-robin type situation, you don't need to know the exact IP address. You can just put the DNS name. You can mine trees and ghosts while holding blueprints to be built, which is interesting. So that way you can get things out of the way and then place them. Added explosive cannon shells, so I'm looking forward to that. And then building blueprints over existing ghosts restores the ghost time to live to full, which is good, because that was kind of annoying. If you had anything that had disappeared for a while because of a biter attack, and then you built a blueprint over it, the time to live didn't reset, so sometimes part of the blueprint could disappear. Kind of annoying. We can't load saves before 0.9, which is alright. We've been using 0.11 forever. Rocket defense is gone because we're using the rocket silo now. This change annoys me greatly. So, items on transport belts don't go off the belt at the end, so the transport belt has to go directly in front of the required inserter. I think they're fixing what they thought was a bug. And I can understand that thinking, but it has become so much a part of Factorio and planning your factories. I thought it was a great thing because it saves resources. So now there's going to be 2 more resources on the belt, which doesn't sound like a lot, but over the long haul, on every end of the belt that you have, that's 2 more resources. That is kind of annoying. It also means that in any save that you have, if you load it up in 0.12, you now have to go around extending every single one of your belts by 1, or the inserters won't work. So this really only affected the more, I'd say, the moderate player to advanced player, because basic players they just put them all down and they don't think about that withholding the last belt option that makes it more efficient. Well, now they've taken it away. One of the concessions that I'm hoping will happen, and again, I haven't loaded this up, but I'm hoping this will happen, is that because items don't go off the belt, that they won't get stuck at the end of a splitter either. So when a splitter comes through, if it doesn't continue, it won't bump out that one little bit, so you lose 2 at every splitter. So if I'm going to gain some back that way, I guess I can handle the loss of efficiency at the end, but it's really annoying. So we'll just have to see. Reduced number of rendered RoboPort connections. I'm not really sure what that's implying. I guess maybe it just tries to minimize the roboports instead of like just connecting to everyone that's in range. I'm not sure. The trade in marketplace only happens if the player can accept the trade items. Inserters can now extract from roboports and beacons, so this is kind of cool. This was something that we had tried to do in 0.11 to upgrade things in Bob's mods. You can see it in Roomba's recent Bob's mods, and now it'll be possible. Bob's mods aren't updated for 0.11 or 0.12 yet, so you know, I mean, but once that happens, that's good. I'll point that out too in the middle of the video, so 15 minutes in, you're going to find this out. I'm going to continue to play 0.11.22 for Bob's mods because Bob's mods aren't updated for 0.12. Plus, 0.12 is considered to be experimental, which is weird for me because in typical Linux nomenclature, your odds are experimental and your evens are stable. Well, they're doing experimental through to stable. So like 0.11 started as experimental and then it became stable. So I don't know. Let's see, inserters can now take items from right behind them, not from the center of the pickup target entity, which is, it just basically means it's probably going to favor now the front side of the belt instead of the back side of the belt. No big deal. This is awesome. Copy entity settings mechanism, now remember only the last entity copied from. That's not what's exciting. What's exciting is when they did this, is it allows, this mechanism now allows you to copy paste across different entities of the same type. So if you had certain machines that were assembly 1s and others that were assembly 2s because you needed different levels of iron gear speed crafting, that's the only thing I could think of off a quick hand, you can now copy between them. But it also lets you copy between assemblers and requester chests. So if I have something set up to make solar panels, for instance, I can shift right click on the originating factory, then shift left click on the box, and it will automatically set up the requesting for the box to be double what is needed in the recipe for whatever I'm making. That's awesome. It's going to save a tremendous amount of time. So very awesome. Trees have smaller bounding boxes, so it's easier to walk through them. Well, this is fantastic. I mean, this is why I installed that mod in my Bob's mod game, so we won't need that one. Unless it makes them really smaller. Like, if this is just sort of smaller, then the other one might still be good, but it's easier to walk through forest. Excellent. Power armor module generates and consumes 100 times more power in order to be able to charge construction robots. Okay, that's great. I've already seen there's an exploit that will be fixed, I'm sure, in 0.12.1. That means that batteries pretty much insta-charge. So you can put on power armor, put in one shield, one battery, and one core, and stand in the middle of a biter base and never die. So that's going to be needed to be fixed. But it's pretty cool right now. Construction robots don't build gate in the gap between the rolling stock vehicles. They wait for the train to get away. I'm not entirely certain what that's affecting, so we'll play around and see, I guess. This is amazing! If I played multiplayer, this would have frustrated the hell out of me. When you died, your logistics slots and filters are gone. Well, now they're remembered, so that's excellent. Does it remember the tool belt as well? I don't know. So we'll see how that goes if we ever get into a multiplayer game. And I'm available, by the way, if anyone wants to play. I'm in. We're good. I mean, I don't need... It's anyone who wants to play, whether you're a Roomba or you're just another small-timer starting out like me. Let's play some Factorio. Steejo, where are you? Avak, let's play. Come on. Construction robot. I already read that one. All turrets are now 4x4. What they really mean is that they're 4 tiles big, so they're 2x2. They used to be, the lasers were 1x1, I think, and then the other turrets were 1x2s. So now they're both 2x2s, which for us won't be a problem in the saves that we're watching online, because I haven't built turrets that close together. I don't think. But we'll see. Lasers are 4 times more powerful, but also more expensive, so it comes by. And gun turrets are twice as expensive, which I don't think was necessary, but so be it. The RoboPort tooltip now shows the correct number of construction and logistic robots separately. Fantastic. When a train loses path and cannot find a new one, it stops immediately, which is good and bad. Again, this is sort of helping people who don't design good rail networks, because apparently the trains would have kept going as far as they could, and then they'd never be able to get out. I don't know. That just sounds like bad rail design to me, but I guess it's an okay fix. Improvements to the circuit network wire condition. You can connect multiple wires of the same color to the same entity, which I find to be interesting. I'm wondering if... No, because I definitely... I don't know what the benefit of that is. We'll have to see. The autosave dialog no longer cancels an active blueprint or deconstruction planner, which is nice because that got me a couple of times. And the number of autosave slots is now configurable. I'm never going to change it. 3 is enough for me, but some people may want more, especially if you do 0.12. Maybe I would do more, but I don't know. Lots of optimizations. Train and belt heavy factories is roughly 66% compared to 0.11, so the game, they're saying, runs approximately 3 times faster, which is going to be good for us because there are many trains and many belts in my factories. They're not running that slowly, but they're apparently going to run even faster, so okay. Transport belt movement, rotated bounding box collision checks, smoke updates, solar, which is actually more than you think because every train and every steam engine has smoke, and that was really slowing things down, so that'll speed things up a bit. The solar panel and solar panel inputs are merged, so the count doesn't matter. That just optimizes it. Accumulators are merged into groups. Basically, it's 1 group per network. It helps them move faster. Landmine activation, which we don't use, so interesting. The smaller multiplayer heartbeat packet size just makes things move that much faster in multiplayer. Adding and removing of the roboports, and the robots keep their tasks if they can. That's kind of cool. Pathfinder will terminate when search is too long, which isn't, again, a big thing for us, but that's another huge rail network issue. Optimize the rendering for large logistic networks, which doesn't affect us, but it might. And then fix that the graphics were saved twice in RAM. Yeah, that seems like a big oversight. So they fixed that. That's good. There's new combat robot graphics, new laser gun turrets, because they're now 2x2, of course. And their color is player dependent, which is kind of cool. There's a new muzzle flash graphic for the player car, tank, and turrets. There's a new tree graphic, which is good. Trees have 4 levels of leaves, and leaves are colorable. They emit leaves when being mined and destroyed, which is kind of cool, and branches, of course. Storage tank is a small window showing the liquid inside, which is neat. Of course, you can always Alt-Tab into, or not Alt-Tab, but just Alt into it. Combat robots have an attack beam. Cool. And new GUI weapons. So that's kind of cool. They fixed some bugs. So some of these are really quite nice. The wrong item count in the logistics system when handing partially filled magazines, repair packs, or other items of durability. That's fixed. The choppy movement when using the exoskeleton, I never noticed it, but a lot of people claim that the walking was wonky, but I don't know. It looks okay to me. But I guess it's smoother now. Item description localization is better along with entity description localization, so that's always good. Proper blueprint centering. This didn't really affect us much because I tended to center my rectangle on what I was copying anyway, but apparently some people didn't, and it would center the blueprint in a weird place, so that's been fixed. Very big entities no longer disappear at the edge of the screen. That's good. When putting things on the ground, the first item was never put exactly under the cursor, even when the place was empty. This is talking about items from the inventory, so not actually building things, but just putting things on the ground, or on belts for that matter. Fixed that it wasn't possible to swap stacks of the same item with different health. That's very helpful. Fixed strange behavior of tank car entering sound. Never noticed that, but okay. Fixed a fluid box crash, which is always good. Car tank ammo inventory is refilled from the trunk or player inventory when exhausted. Finally. This didn't make any sense at all, but apparently it was a bug. So now it's fixed. So if you run out of, piercing shots in your car turret or in your tank turret, and you'd have to actually go into the inventory, reload them and everything. Now it's automatic, which was how it's supposed to be, which is good. There was invalid entry crashing the game, so good they fixed that. Fix the power armor battery level indicator getting drawn on top of everything else. Okay. Fix that following robots created through trigger crashed the game. Well, okay, that would be bad. Fix the train pathfinding issue when the train crashes to something while stopping for signal or station in front of a junction. Fix that crashing to something while in manual mode in train could switch to automatic mode. Fix another crash when modded GUI styles in multiplayer, which is not big for us yet. Fix crash when trying to read something on a dead player. Again, that's a multiplayer issue. Fix crash when canceling deconstruction of a logistic container that was marked for deconstruction after the logistic network had lost power and then regained power. That's a very specific bug. I'm amazed they, 1, found it, and 2, could fix it. That's pretty interesting. Can place entity returns true when checking item off ground against item on ground, so that's kind of nice. Turrets can now be modded to use shotgun ammo. Very cool. Notice it says modded, so that's not base. Fixed research window appearing behind the selection minimap pane when shown from research completion. That happened infrequently, but it wasn't that big of a deal for me. Fixed the inability to bind some OEM keys on Windows and adding more binding keys for Windows. This, again, was not a problem on Linux. It worked just great out of the box. Fixed marking a ton of entities for deconstruction outside the construction range of roboports, slowing down normal deconstruction rates. Right? If it's outside the range, then now they're going to ignore it. which is good, because they didn't before that. They'd keep trying to go and say, it's outside of the range, what else? Fix a crash when removing electric poles from electric networks or circuits with large amounts of poles. That's good. Fix video memory usage optimization on Windows again, which is fine. Doesn't affect us. We're on Linux, and as it says, other players didn't have that issue. Fix that control clicking entire inventory in a machine installed modules. That was frustrating because it was indiscriminate. It didn't care what modules it installed. It just installed them, and that was kind of really annoying. Excuse me. Fix another trying to chunk it in a reasonable position bug. This is good. It never really affected us, but any other fix. Requester chests can no longer request more than they can store. That's good. I didn't even know that they could. I suppose that makes sense. So that's good, because that would have been very much a problem. Console no longer loses focus after autosave, which is fine. We don't use the console very much anyway. And then the wrong highlight was being highlighted when crafting ammo. That's good. Ambient sounds are specified as a prototype, so they can be extended and modified by mods, which is nice. I'm going to modify it by just moving them out of my directory, but we can modify it by the mods, so that's good. A bunch of different scripting things that are going on that we could talk about, but this is mostly going to be interested for if you're modding things. So that's it. Download the full install here. Factorio.com/download/experimental. Log in. This is the cutting-edge experimental version. There may be some nasty bugs. Use it at your own risk. So there it is. Ready to go. Released. All of them. 64-bit, 32-bit. You want Windows. You want anything. There you go. Not 0.12 demo. So if you have not 0.11, this will not automatically update because it's considered to be experimental, unless you've clicked the experimental box, in which case it will automatically update. So that's kind of good. Like I said, in Bob's Mods, that series, we will not be using the not 0.12 until Bob's Mods is ready. So we're just going to keep playing not 0.11, and then I'm going to try and upgrade the other campaign immediately to not 0.12 and see what happens. Just understand that there might be a couple of bugs. You know, maybe, or maybe I'll just start a new series with not 0.12. Let me know. Let me know in the comments. Tweet me, send me an email, whatever you want to do. And we'll get going. So I hope you enjoyed the updates. If you did, click that like button, save some comments, see if you're excited. Let me know what's going on, because of Factorio, man. Factorio! It's exciting. So consider subscribing to the channel so you can stay updated with all the Factorio stuff. And until next time, cheers.